Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist, Theresa Alexander-Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome. Today my guest is Margaret Pegi Price. She is a professor who's written many books. Oh, and a mother of an autistic young man who's written books to help parents and people in the legal system, whether you're an attorney or a judge. She's written books to help you just understand the unique issues that are present during divorce when a child with a diagnosis, an autistic child, is involved. So welcome, Dr. Pegi. Hey, Pegi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you because it's really crazy. I know several people who are navigating this system at the moment, and I had to, custody part of it. And I was like, oh gosh, this is so timely because I like to, provide help in real time. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, what brought this on? Like, how did you get into this?
Well, it wasn't a path that I chose. I've been a lawyer since 1986, and I had a child who in the mid-90s. And when my child was just a couple of years old, they were diagnosed with classic autism and nonverbal. And that was back when we knew far less about autism than we do now. It's been referred to as the dark ages of autism. When I got divorced in 2001, my child was still nonverbal at age 6. In fact, it wasn't until 2 years after the divorce at age 8 that Sam became verbal. So it was really a difficult time. And thankfully, I was already a lawyer when I had my child and had handled quite a few divorces for clients. And shortly after my child's diagnosis, I became a trained autism therapist so that I could work with my child. And I realized at the time of the divorce that if I didn't have that unique combination of lawyer with a history of or experience handling divorces and parent and trained autism therapist, I would not have had any idea the unique issues that I needed to have the court address in the divorce for my child's best interests.
Wow.
Because these cases are very different. They have much greater needs. And unfortunately, a lot of lawyers don't realize that. And they use the cookie cutter pre-printed forms that the courts, the divorce courts are swamped. They have massive caseloads, very little time to devote to each individual case. So they have created and pre-printed forms. Mm-hmm. For example, when I got divorced, the parenting plan was a pre-printed form, at least the standard one that the court used. It was printed front and back, and all you would do is write in the name of the case number, the names of the parties, the child's name and date of birth, and whether which parent got visitation schedule A and which one got and holiday schedule B. Mm-hmm. That wasn't adequate with a child with autism. And so that form, it was either 2 or 3 pieces of paper printed double sided. So it was either a 2 or a 4 page entire parenting plan. I decided to write my own parenting plan, and there are sample parenting plans in my books. And mine was 32 pages long.
Wow.
4 or 6 pages. The judge didn't know what to think. But then when the judge started reading it, he got it because he happens to have an adult child with special needs. It was his son's special need was uncontrolled seizures.
Mm.
So he knew from living it. And those are the judges who are usually the best at these cases.
Wow. Now, what are some of the considerations that a parent need to, like, what are some things that need to be considered that they should consider, should think about in these cases? Because like you said, most parents don't know. They're going to look at this form and say, okay, this is it. However, like you said, there are so many other, you went from, these 4 pages to 32. So just highlight some of the most salient.
Well, and I'll just touch on them briefly because we could sit here and talk all day about these issues. Financial,
Mm-hmm.
it costs more usually to raise a child with special needs.
Yes.
And they also have, on the average, children with special needs have 3 times as many sick days as a typical child. So if one parent gets the responsibility for all of those days, they're probably going to lose their job. And so you will have the primary caregiving parent going from one job to the next job to the next job, low pay, entry level, because they don't get to stay at one long enough to really build up any seniority. They might not qualify for the employer's retirement plan. So they have a risk of being destitute in their old age. No parent should be impoverished for taking care of their child. But that happens to so many people. And a lot of times with health insurance, especially back in the 90s, you have to be a full-time employee. Well, if they can't work full-time because of the child's needs, they don't have health insurance. Or they don't qualify for the health insurance until they've been there for, say, 3 months or 6 months. Well, if they're going from job to job because of taking care of the child, a lot of the time they have no health insurance, the parent. And it can be a part-time job in addition to trying to support themselves through employment for the caregiver parent to meet the child's needs, to deal with insurance companies and government benefits programs, to transport the child to doctor appointments, therapy, treatment appointments, and to take care of the child after all of those things. And on sick days, the child might have a meltdown at school and the parent has to leave immediately. Employers don't like that.
No, they don't. And
they often, they clock out. That means that they didn't get their full pay for that day. And the primary caregiver parent with all of those different things might not be able to work enough hours in the day to maintain full-time employment to support themselves. So even if the primary caregiver parent is employed, spousal support might be appropriate. Also, children who are on the spectrum often struggle with transitions.
Yes.
And a standard visitation schedule has a child living out of a suitcase. That's not good for any child.
Right.
But particularly for one who struggles with transition. So instead of, for example, having the child with parent A on Mondays and Tuesdays, parent B on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then the parents alternate the long weekends, would you like to sleep in a different bed almost every other night?
Gosh, no. Not at all.
No. And
No.
so there are better ways to craft the visitation schedules, the overnight visits, all of that. I don't have time to go into all of it, but it's the parent guide that I wrote.
Yeah.
Also, I touched on the retirement issue.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to help address the problem of the impoverished elderly caregiving parent when they retire by doing a non-traditional distribution of the other spouse's retirement account. Doing that, anticipating what can happen down the road, taking care of that at the time of the divorce. Also, as we know, autism doesn't go away. That's not an 18th birthday gift.
Right.
The fairy does not come down and tap your child with a wand and say, poof, you're now autism free.
Right.
So it might be appropriate to state in the divorce decree that because of the child's special need and identifying the special need as being on the autism spectrum, to deviate from the standard age of emancipation for the purposes of child support.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many other pre-printed cookie cutter forms that the courts use to try to be efficient.
Yes.
And very few of them are appropriate, especially the child support worksheets. And they often will have a single line on the calculations that for extraordinary expenses. They usually mean, fancy private school. So the issue with a child with special needs is that the extraordinary or atypical financial aspects of it aren't predictable and aren't the same from month to month.
Yeah.
So the cookie cutter child support calculation forms usually don't work.
So how do you account for that then, Dr. Peggy or Peggy? How do you account for the fluctuation? Like what would a parent do to help account for that?
Well, they can document what their child's extraordinary costs tend to be. For example, if they're on a special diet or if they need particular supplements or for co-pays and uncovered expenses for therapy, for medication, for doctor visits, and whatever the special need costs are. And those will vary from one child to another. And just when you think you have a handle on how much the special needs costs are, they'll change.
Oh goodness, excuse my dogs.
No worries. Because as a child, for example, when they're 8 years old, calculated and medication that worked before might not be appropriate when the child's older. Or maybe new therapy programs that started in their area that were not available at the time. And so taking care of those by modification can be a good way to go. But just documenting and keeping a journal of what the issues are, what the out-of-pocket costs are, not covered by insurance or government programs, can help with that.
Got it. Yeah. So at least it will give them a rough estimate of, or a closer approximation to what the actual cost will be.
Right. And just going into court and saying, oh, I spent an extra $200 or $300 a month on special needs items for the child, the judge is not going to go for that. You need to itemize. You need to keep receipts, build your case, document, and show that it wasn't just a one-time thing. I mean, it's not like back to school shopping. Yeah, it's a big ticket item, but you only do most of it once a year. You need to show month after month after month what these running costs are.
Mm-hmm.
And children on the spectrum need to have consistency.
Yes.
They need to have the same routine at both houses, and both parents need to be schooled on, yes, it's your parenting time, but that does not supersede your child's interests. And what's best for your child isn't for you to use your time as, oh, I'm the fun parent and the other parent will have all the work, and we're not doing bedtime here, and we're not doing routines here. No, that's not any child's best interest, much less a child with special needs. And the child needs to have predictability. It can cause great anxiety and stress in a child on the spectrum if, okay, Mondays and Tuesdays, they have a certain routine when they get home from school, and they do their homework, and they have dinner, and they play for a certain amount of time, and then they have bath time, and then they wind down for bedtime. But then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, they might run around and go places, go to the mall and all these other places that the other parent might want to go with them, and have no structure, and the homework doesn't get done, and they get fed, junk food from the food court, and they might even skip a bath because they got home so late, and then they can't wind down for bed. That's not in the child's best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And on the parenting time, it needs to be not only consistent routine and schedule for the child, but putting the child's needs first. It's not a control or power thing, and saying, well, I pay child support so I can do whatever I want when my child's with me. It's not about parental rights. It's about the best interests of the child. And the parenting plan needs to have a way to resolve conflicts between the parents without always having to run back to court.
Yes.
And that often can be a mediator,
Mm-hmm.
particularly one who has experience in high conflict divorce and or divorce involving children with special needs. That person, maybe there'll be, if a person's lucky, there will be 2 or 3 people who fit that description in their area. And if so, then maybe they can be listed in an addendum schedule to the parenting plan that can be switched out from time to time as need be. For example, if one of the mediators moves or stops doing mediation work. We learned during COVID that all parents after a divorce need to have a way to resolve disputes and conflicts out of court, because sometimes you can't get to court. But even when the courts are not shut down by something like a pandemic, it can take months to get a hearing date and spend a lot more money than should be. It would be ideal if the parents can have that money to spend meeting the child's needs rather than living in a war zone of constant battle.
Yeah, which actually negatively impacts the child when are they pitting one against the other? What's going on? Like what's happening with mommy and daddy? They can't get along. I mean, what's the child seeing? What's the child feeling? Is it their fault? And a lot of children, they feel like it's their fault, and which
Oh,
increases
exactly.
their anxiety and, just everything else.
Oh, I've seen, because I practiced law for 25 years. Now I'm in full-time academia, but I saw so many tragic cases in which the child would blame themselves. If I weren't so much work, mommy and daddy would still be together. If I didn't, need all of these expensive things because of my special needs, they'd still be together. The divorce is my fault. Even children who do not have special needs often blame themselves when their parents divorce. And that's tragic and shouldn't happen, but it does frequently. And it would be wonderful if there were some type of automatic counseling program for the children going through a divorce. Many courts require parents to go through parent education when they go through a divorce. Why don't they do that for the children?
Yeah, their world has been turned upside down, and they're trying to navigate, things that are related to their diagnosis. And now you throw this in, and, sometimes, actually, I had Lisa Johnson. She works with, she and her husband, they help families who are divorcing. And, she said that she asked me to come on her show actually to talk about the increase in physical aggression with children whose parents are divorcing, because again, I always say every behavior is communication. And when you see that, they're trying to communicate something. Let's help them navigate this, because it is difficult for them. The world has been turned upside down. And like you said, they're blaming themselves and all this is happening. And, it's just a really difficult time for children. It's difficult for the parents, never mind the children.
Oh, yes. And when they're with one parent, they might be bad-mouthing the other parent. And then they go to the other parent and they return the favor and bad-mouth the first parent. Another thing these parenting plans need to address, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, is life is about changes. The treatment plans for a child with long-term special needs, autism, or other special needs will change from time to time over the years. They might develop an adverse reaction to a prescription. A child with cerebral palsy might outgrow their wheelchair or might need to have special lift equipment to get them out of bed and into their chair. A treatment that might have been appropriate when a child was 8 years old might not work as well when they enter puberty. We know puberty affects so many body processes, and anything that messes with the body chemistry as much as that does is going to impact a lot of medical systems and medical treatments. Sometimes a child's special need will be, for example, unfortunately, cancer. Mm-hmm. What happens if the cancer goes to another organ? It metastasizes. Or what if the child goes into remission? Sometimes a child's condition will improve. Like with my child, 2 years after the divorce, my child became verbal. Great. It's not all doom and gloom, but you still need to have a way to keep the finger on the pulse. How's the child doing over time, and what modifications are appropriate? To keep everything, the parenting plan, the child support, all of those things in the best interest of the child. That is, after all, what is supposed to be the legal standard in our family court system. The best interests of the child.
Awesome.
So that's just a quick overview of some of the many topics that need to be addressed when a family with a special needs child goes through the family court system, whether it's divorce, paternity, child custody battle, modification, or other.
Yeah, and like you said, we could talk all day about this. And if you're open to it, I'd love to have you come back again so we can talk some more because there's some, it's just important to give parents as much as possible. And I know it's also available in your book, so maybe that's another resource. How can people access your books?
They're on Amazon.
Okay. And
And if you're able to put links in the description, the show description, that's how people often find them.
okay, awesome, awesome. So, and the title of your books, just so they're looking right now.
The law book published by the American Bar Association, and I always pause because I want to get say these right. The Special Needs Child and Divorce, and then the parent guide is Divorce and the Special Needs Child.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
that one's a guide for parents.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy. It's been
My
a
pleasure.
joy. Thank you. You've shared so much information, and I'm like, parents access this information. It will, peace is really important, right? When you feel peace, your child feels peace, and it really helps the situation. It helps improve the situation, it helps it not be so challenging. So access these resources so that you can make that journey a lot smoother for you and your child. And thank you for watching. See you next time, same place. Thank you.